If you've ever priced out the cost of having somebody replace your timing belt, you'll see it's a pretty expensive job. But it doesn't have to be if you're somewhat mechanically inclined. The procedure that we're going to be doing in this video is pretty much identical for every Miata from 1990 all the way up to 2005. There are some slight differences in the things attached to the valve cover and the way things are laid out as far as the hoses and everything, but the actual process itself is pretty much the same. The car we're working on today is owned by my friend Adam, and I'm going to let him fill you in on the details.
This is my 2002 Miata Special Edition in, what did we say, blazing yellow mica. Yeah. Beautiful color. The paint on this one is a little worse for the wear. I picked it up from a nice lady who daily drove it all the way up over 200,000 miles. And now it's time to hopefully give it a new life. So.
Yeah, and you'll see that right now it's pretty grungy. So today we're going to be doing a timing belt on this. We're also going to be replacing the water pump and the radiator, and maybe some other things too. So we're going to do a time lapse that, and let's go ahead and start that now. Adam started by removing the coolant overflow bottle. Now you don't need to do this, but he was replacing it later, so it's easier to just take it out now. I started removing the intake tube, and Adam moved over to start draining the radiator. I also disconnected the wires for the mass airflow sensor and intake air temperature sensor, as well as the wire to the power steering pump. The shock tower bar will need to be removed so you can get the valve cover off, and while I did that, Adam worked on removing the radiator hoses. He also worked on removing the engine wiring from the front part of the engine. You'll notice that as we do this, we're sorting all of the mounting bolts and hardware into Ziploc bags. I highly recommend that you do this to keep all the hardware organized and to make sure that you don't lose anything. Once the top hoses were off, Adam climbed underneath to remove the lower radiator hose and finished draining the radiator, while I removed the mounts from the radiator so that we could lift it out. This process is easier if you leave the fans bolted on the radiator, but make sure you pull the power wires off before you try to lift it out. After that, I started working on getting the plugs and coils removed, and this is where I ran into our first issue. The plug wires were kind of old, and the wire stuck to the plug on cylinder 1. I worked on it delicately for a little bit, but once I discovered Adam had new wires, I decided to just give it a good pull, and fortunately it came right off. Next, Adam removed the PCV hose, and I started working on getting the wiring harness loose. You don't have to completely remove the wiring, but it does need to be moved out of the way so you can remove the valve cover. I then removed the thermostat housing from the front of the engine and kept working on removing the wiring, while Adam removed the bolts to the oil line on the back of the valve cover. Once that was out, it was time for the valve cover to come off. You might need to find a pry point to break loose the seal of the gasket. I found the spot right behind the throttle body worked really well. We rested the valve cover back in its place temporarily just to keep the dirt and debris out of the engine. So now that we have our valve cover loose and we have all the intake and radiator and stuff out of there, next step is going to be to take the belts off. We're going to have to loosen the alternator and loosen the power steering pump to get these out, and then once we've got this out, we're going to start taking off the covers for the front of the timing belt here, and we're going to take the water pump pulley off. We're going to replace the water pump, and then once we get all that ready to go, then we're going to start working on getting the crank off of here. Oh, and one quick addendum here that I need to add is that we're going to need to drop the sway bar down. So you don't have to pull it all the way out, but you do need to drop these mounts down over here and over here, because you're going to need them out of the way to be able to turn the crank pulley. And we need to turn the crank pulley to get to the power steering bolts. Let's go ahead and go back to time lapse now. The power steering belt needs to come off first. So we turn the engine manually to move the pulley so we could loosen the bolts. Then we remove the belt. Next, we loosen the mounts for the alternator, and then we remove that belt. You'll notice that I didn't loosen the bolts on the water pump pulley as per my advice. So I used a box wrench to hold the pulley still while I removed the bolts with a ratchet. Next, we lifted the wiring harness up out of the way so we could remove the front covers. Adam held the crank bolt while I removed the pulley. And now that we have everything apart, I'm going to put on this Flying Miata crank tool here so we can get the crank bolt loose, and then we can get the timing belt out. We thought it was going to be tough to get out, but...
Well, that was anticlimactic.
So yeah, this is a little anticlimactic because this bolt wasn't even tight. I didn't even have to pull on it. It just came right out. So that was a little scary, but hopefully that's not a problem. But anyway, well, let's keep going. Then we put the crank bolt back in so we could use it to turn the engine. Here we are turning it until the mark on the crank is at top dead center and the cam pulleys are aligned properly. The mark at about the 4 o'clock position on the intake cam gear should align with the mark on the foot of the Ninja tool, and the exhaust gear should have the E at the 12 o'clock position. To hold the cam still while the gears are off, many people use a pair of crescent wrenches in an X pattern with a vice grip clamping them together in the center. This is also a substitute for the Ninja tool. We zip tie the Ninja tool in place with 3 ties on each side. Adam then snipped off the ends so they weren't poking us and they were out of the way. To remove the timing belt, remove the spring on the belt tensioner on the left side. Remove the pulley on the opposite side of the pump. You should then be able to remove the timing belt pretty easily. So we've removed the Woodruff key. We got the pulley off and everything, and now we're going to take the crank gear off. I'm going to let Adam do the honors on this. So here we go.
Yeah, that's stuck.
It's stuck. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Oh, you got it? Is it moving?
Oh, it's moving side to side, but I think that's just...
That's the crank that's turning.
Oh,
yeah, you got it. Look at that.
There it is.
Wow. Oh, my God.
All right. Let's play the lottery.
Off. Yeah, look at that.
Wow.
Okay, so now we get to do the water pump.
Incredible.
And if you're following along with this on your own timing belt job, don't do what we're about to do. No, we don't want to do the water pump. There are some steps that come first, and you'll see why in a moment. Okay, so I made a mistake here. As you can see, we have to take the cam gears off to get this plate off, to get the water pump off. And I had to take this bolt out of the alternator to get that out too. And you didn't see me pull the bolts out of the water pump because I forgot to start the camera. So, my bad. So anyway, we're going to take the cam gears off, and we're going to take this plate off here, and then we're going to do all the seals and the water pump. The exhaust cam gear came off really easy. The cover for the VVT actuator, however, was another story. By now we were getting tired and started making some really bad choices. So we have a dilemma that we're dealing with, and we have to get these screws out of the VVT module to get this cover off so that we can take the cam gear off, so we can replace the seals and so we can get the water pump off. But these bolts, these 3 bolts in here are stripped, and we're trying to figure out what our plan of attack is here. So we'll figure this out off camera and then we'll come back.
11 minutes later.
Okay, so what we decided to do is we're going to take this cam gear off. We're going to do the cam seal here. we're gonna bail on the water pump because it's just too tough to get out of here. Hopefully it'll seal back up, so we're just gonna take the chance of that. But we figured it'd be a bigger risk to try to take the water pump out without getting this off than it would be to just tighten it back up. And supposedly this water pump was replaced before he bought it, so we don't think that's going to be a problem, but we're really concerned about trying to take this off and then not being able to put it back together again. So all right, so let's do the cam seals and keep going.
2 hours later.
We went and got some more tools. As you can see here, we've got the cam seal out of there, and we're going to try to get this one out. We realize we have new screws for the VVT thing here, so we're just going to do whatever we can to get these things out. So we're trying to hammer a bigger Torx bit in there, and we'll see if we get it out. So here we go. Here's our attempt. Let's go ahead and send it.
Much later.
Okay, so we got sidetracked there, turned the cameras off, and we messed with this for a while. We have decided to give up on trying to get the VVT out to do the cam seal back here. These 2 bolts are completely stripped out, so we've given up on this and we will try this another time. We have our cam seal on the other side done. We did the crank seal already. The tool we used is one like this. I don't recommend that you use the tool like this because it makes it really tough to get them out. Use one like this one on the screen here right now. This thing will take them right off, and you can get these on Amazon. They're pretty cheap. So we've got our crank tool on here, and we are going to put in the crank bolt. So I've got a good line of blue Loctite on there, and the torque spec for this is 116 to 122 foot-pounds. So you're going to have to really torque on this thing, and this crank tool from Flying Miata that we're using here, it's just held on with 2 bolts from the crank pulley. This was going to come in really handy. This will make this really easy. So we're going to go ahead and torque this down now. I'll let you do the honors. There you go.
1 minute 37 seconds later.
And then next we're going to get the crank pulley. Well, actually, nope, we don't want to do this yet. We do not want to do this yet. We're not putting this on yet because we're missing one important piece. We're gonna have to take it back off because we forgot to put the timing belt on. It's not gonna run without that, and we can't get it in with this thing in the way. So that sucks.
1 week later.
Okay, well, it's another day, and sometimes you just got to start over and give it another chance to approach it fresh. So we decided to bail on the last attempt, and now we're going to try it again. Our first project for the day is to try to get the screws out of the VVT thing so that we can do the water pump and the cam seal and all that stuff. All right, so how we're going to handle this is we put JB Weld in here. I've got a diamond cutter. I'm going to cut a slot in it. We're going to see if we can make it into a straight slot head and use that to get it out. So let's give it a shot. Look at that.
Looks pretty good.
That looks pretty good, yeah. Want to try it? Ah, the JB weld just broke right off. Yeah, just came right off. Let me see if I can cut into the bolt itself, because it's already trashed, so
yeah.
Might as well try it. Damn it.
With that much torque, I'm surprised.
What do you think?
Well, we could try this one.
Want to try the same thing on the other one?
Yeah. Maybe it's a little looser.
Alright, well.
I mean, it's just going to fall out again if it doesn't work.
Strike one. Let's go for strike two. Ah, damn it. JBL just came out again. Let me see if we can jam the screwdriver in there. You have the hammer handy?
Oh, you got it.
I got it. Oh my God. And if you're working on your own timing belt, you can go ahead and start following along again. We probably have to hit it like right about here.
Yeah. Oh, that was a lot easier than
There you go.
I thought it was going to be.
Loose.
Okay. Yeah,
Success.
from what I read from past accounts, I would have thought that would have required a lot more of a whack, but apparently not.
And
all right, we have succeeded.
you have been defeated. Since we already did all that stuff, we're just going to leave the timing belt laying loose in here.
You know, the unfortunate thing is we have to take the freaking, we have to take both cams off in order to take the, unless we can get in there and get that bolt out. Because remember, there's a bolt on each side of both of the, it's just, it's not a big deal.
It's the song that never ends. All right, I'm ready.
Ready?
Yep. Okay. There it goes.
Gotta put it on full blast.
Yep. Oh. This one's loose. Is this one loose? Yes, it is. It's loose.
Better be, there's nothing else
Look
to
at
hold it
that.
off.
Oh my God. We got the cam gears off. Finally, we were making headway and back on track. Once the cam gears were off, we could then remove the front plate with the water pump coming off shortly after. Sorry for the terrible camera angle here, but the other camera decided to run out of battery. Then the new water pump went back on using the gasket that came with it. You don't need to use RTV on this. Torque the water pump bolts to 14 to 19 foot-pounds. The bolts on the side by the power steering pump are a bit of a pain to put back in. Once we get the water pump back in, the next thing we need to do is put the thermostat housing back on, and there's an O-ring that goes right in here in this little groove. And I don't use any RTV on these or anything. I just basically just put it back on, just like so. So we're going to torque these to the same spec as the other stuff, which is 14 to 18 foot-pounds. And I'm just doing it to 16. We've got our torque wrench set to. Let's go ahead and torque them in. Okay, there we go. That one actually works pretty good on that. We're using the Gen Miata PVT cam alignment tool here, which you're going to put the seal on top of it like that, and then you're going to put it over the cover, and then you're going to put the bolt for the cam through there, and we have to tighten it down, but one of us is going to have to hold the cam with the crescent wrench to keep it from turning. Okay, all right, so we're going to tighten this down. Okay, so I'm going to start cranking on it a little bit. So
Watch how close you are there.
yeah, we need to go a little bit farther in. Okay, that should be good. All right, so I'm gonna pull it out now, so I'm gonna go the other way. All right, and then once we take this out, then we should have one fully seated cam seal. And the other cam and the crank seal are pretty much the same process. If you're going to do a timing belt on an NA or an NB, I highly recommend that you buy the Gen Miata kit, because it makes this whole process so much easier, and you see how nicely it seated that cam seal in there. The tool that I showed you before actually works better on those, but that big tool I had actually was what it took to get that one out. So I proved myself wrong twice in one video. That's okay, I'm used to being wrong. One thing I'm going to point out here on this plate that goes on here is you'll notice it says E and I, exhaust and intake, but this is reversed. The intake's on this side, exhaust on that side, but if you try to put it on that way, it doesn't line up. So you have to put it on this way. So even though the markings are backwards, this is the correct way. Now we got the cam cover plate on here, and next thing we're going to do is put the cam gears back on and start putting it all back together and get it ready to start. Go about another almost 90.
I feel like I'm destroying something. It's going to do that exact same thing again.
Well, here, I wonder if I can do it this way.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Went too far. There we go.
Yeah.
Come on. Come on. There we go. It's on. Okay. We're going to call that good.
Yeah, don't pull it off again.
We got our 17 for this side and the 14 for the other side. Where's the other bolt? Over here.
Yep, it's on the table right next to the valve cover there.
It's kind of a little bit of a pain to get those cam gears back on. We kind of cheated a little bit. Probably not the best way to do this, but as I said, this is for entertainment purposes only. Your mileage may vary, and if you have problems, don't blame it on me. That's snug.
Yep.
Let me get the 14. So I'm just going to do the same thing. And then we can put the timing belt on. Alright. So that's snug. That's good. Okay, so Adam is going to hold the cams while we torque these cam bolts. What was the torque spec again?
37 to 44.
Okay, so we're doing 42?
Yep.
Okay, so we got our torque wrench set for 42. Let me know when you're ready.
Good.
Okay, there's one. Now the exhaust cam, which is a 14. Okay, I'll give that one another ugga-dugga. Okay, and then let's give the DVT side another little oomph. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, cam gears are torqued. Now we're going to put the timing belt back on, and then we're going to close it up, and then we're done. When you're ready to put the timing belt back on, hold the tensioner on the left side all the way to the left as far as you can go, and then tighten the bolt down so it stays there. I find it easiest to work the belt on around the tensioner and then squeeze it in at the last moment.
Does that look right? Because now I can slip it onto the pulley.
Yeah, I mean I think it's as close as we're going to be able to get it.
That is correct.
Okay, so can you get that one on?
I think so.
All right, there we go. It's on. Woohoo! So we're going to loosen the bolt on the tensioner right here so that it snaps into place. And you'll see as soon as I let that loose, it's going to snug up against the belt, and this is all going to be tight. See, it's a little loose at the top, but this here is all tight. All right, so now that we've got that loose, now we're going to take our torque wrench and we are going to torque that bolt. 27 to 38 foot-pounds is the torque spec, and we are doing it at 35. So now our tensioner is torqued. Now that the timing belt is on, we can remove the zip ties from the Ninja tool. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pull the Ninja tool out of there. And now that we've got this timing belt on there, everything's tightened up, we're going to turn the engine a couple times around just to make sure that it still comes back at top dead center when we have the mark on the crank lined up. The cam gears should all be in the correct position again. Correct position is where the E on the exhaust cam is at the very 12 o'clock position, and there's a little notch on the bottom right of the intake gear, and you'll see that there's this kind of diagonal piece on the plate behind it, and that should line up with that when you look at it straight on. Okay, so we're going to go 2 full turns around. Okay, there's 1. Okay, and that's top dead center right there. Okay, so notice E's at the top. This timing mark lines up with that little diagonal. Yep, and this one over here lines up with the other diagonal. We are good to go. From here, you're basically going to put everything back together in the reverse order of how you took it off. Make sure you put the crank position sensor back in correctly or you won't be able to start the car. Timing plate goes on first. This is important. Make sure when you put this on that the center, the raised section is facing out and the little indentation here, this little dot, is facing in. Otherwise, your car's not going to run. There's also a hole right here that lines up with the pin at top dead center. And you just basically just put that on there like that, and you're good. And then we take the pulley. It also has a pin, a hole for the pin at top dead center. So it goes on there just like so. The torque spec on the bolts on the crank pulley is 109 to 151 inch-pounds again, so we're going to do this at about 130. I'm going to go ahead and just put these in by hand, but these don't need to be super tight. Okay, so then we need to put the VVT thing back on.
Should we torque these to spec or should we just lightly?
I don't know. You gonna do the next timing belt? Okay, so I put our water pump pulley on. The torque spec for this is 70 to 95 inch-pounds. So we're gonna do that at about 82. The alternator belt will go on first, followed by the power steering belt. If the power steering belt is not going over the pulley easily, you can turn the crank and guide it over like we did here. Belt is tight enough when you can't twist it more than 90 degrees if you grab the center of the longest section of the belt and try to turn it away from you. Then you can add the front cover that goes over the lower portion of the cam gears. So I've cleaned up the thermostat housing off camera. I kind of took some Scotch-Brite to it, cleaned it up. I stuck a new gasket on here. I also do not use RTV for this gasket, doesn't really need it. I got a new thermostat here, and the thermostat's going to go in like so. Okay, and there's a nut that goes on the bottom and a bolt that goes on the top, and this points off to the left like so. Now we can put the valve cover back on. I've had luck without using RTV, but for this car we put a little dab in the corners, but nowhere else. Be careful not to pinch any wiring under it, and make sure the gasket has a seal all the way around. Be patient putting the valve cover bolts on. Start with the center bolt and work in a counterclockwise pattern. I first do them finger tight, then make several passes with the ratchet, putting them a little tighter each time. Then Adam followed me with the torque wrench and made several passes until all of the bolts were torqued to 43 to 78 inch-pounds.
So this, I need your help making sure we don't lose the brush
Right.
washer.
Well, it's got to go. The one washer's got to go on the back side of it. So here, you want to hand that to me?
Yep.
And I guess I was reading you actually could replace these, but
I don't have them, so.
yeah. All right. So you got to kind of pull it back.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me get my other hand in here.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry,
I can't
I said
see.
K and then I was blocking it.
I can't even see where it is. I can't see it at all.
Can you see it there?
It's got to go in here.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. Hold on a second.
Can you pull the banjo bolt back a little bit?
1 second. Here, it might be easier if I do it and you pull back the. See if you can get your hand in there and just push back on the. Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect.
Got it? There you go. You got it.
Yep. Perfect.
Perfecto.
So I have absolutely no idea what to look up for this torque spec.
It's 26 to 35 foot-pounds. Adam put in the coolant overflow tank and I put the coils and plug wires back in. We were on the home stretch to completing the project. Next, we both started connecting the wiring back up and reattaching everything to the engine. I'm sure there's going to be tons of comments about all the things we did wrong. We were more concerned with completing the project than filming, so some parts were reinstalled off camera. We started plugging the connectors back in and prepping the car for a first start. It felt really good to be nearing the end, and we were hoping that we did everything right. Finally, we put the shock tower bar back on and reinstalled the radiator. Once the radiator hoses were back on, I reinstalled the intake and finished buttoning everything up. And yes, the radiator is missing the rubber bushings that hold it in. We don't need those to test it though. Okay, now it's the moment of truth. Question is, should you let these two guys work on your car? Let's find out.
I got nothing. Got nothing.
Oh, I guess the answer is no.
I'm terrified that this is just gonna melt down immediately.
All right, so we figured it out. There was some kind of immobilizer on the car. It wasn't us. So go ahead and send it. Hey, there you go.
We got oil pressure.
Okay. That evening we celebrated our victory, but there was one problem that we found that was keeping us from driving the car, and it was going to have to be addressed at a future date. Less than 12 hours later, I found myself sitting on the side of I-5 after hitting a deer, so I had to put any other plans on hold until I could get that whole situation dealt with. It would be quite a while before our schedules aligned enough for us to complete the job, and by that time, Adam had bought Project Ron.
6 months later.
So one thing we discovered while we were doing a once-over on the car is we discovered that there was a slight oil leak. And we found that the oil leak was coming from this banjo bolt right here. And when we went over this, we remembered that we didn't change the crush washers on this, and we think that's why we have a leak. So we went to AutoZone and we bought this pack of Dorman universal copper gasket washers. We bought 2 of these. And this is what we use to fix the issue. This is what we think is the problem. This one here is the one that was originally on there, and this one here is the one that we got from AutoZone in the Dorman pack. And I want you to look at the difference here. So we have the bolt right here. This is the banjo bolt. And look at how loose this washer is on here. And then this is the one we got from AutoZone. And it fits like OEM. And here you can see we have it installed, and I think this one fits so much better than the other one. I think this is gonna fix it. And we just tested it, and that bolt is now dry as a bone. Easy fix, and that was basically 10 bucks. And while we were doing this work, Adam also installed the washer fluid reservoir, and he upgraded the brake rotors and replaced the calipers. I replaced the fog lights and put the wheels back on, while Adam also restored the headlights. They were really cloudy and they looked way better afterwards. And then it was time to take the car on its maiden voyage since Adam bought it.
Let's go.
All right, doing the first test drive.
All right, now if anything falls off, just wave your hands like this, okay?
Okay. That seems pretty solid.
So far, so good. Solid 20 mile an hour.
Do we want to take it out on the highway?
I'm gonna go up the street here and turn around.
All right. So I think this is the first time this car's moved in
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
Probably more than that.
What,
Brakes.
7 months?
Oh, yeah, those are.
I'd say the brakes are sufficient.
That was full brake.
Yeah, they work pretty good. Car seems to run well. Oil pressure is good. Temperature seems good.
That's full brake.
Yeah, I'd say the brakes work.
I wonder if the second gear synchro might be.
Oh, there's a little
wonky.
notchy going in there?
Well, you heard it grind a little bit.
I
Going into the second gear.
Huh. Well, I mean, it does have 200,000 miles on it, so who knows what kind of shape the transmission's in. It seems to run okay, though. It seems to drive okay.
Yeah, I haven't noticed any kind of hesitation or powers. I mean, I don't really know. I don't have a baseline for what a 200,000 mile NB should feel like, but
well,
it seems to have plenty of go. The whole car doesn't shudder when I hit the brakes, so that's an improvement over the previous setup. That's good.
Yeah. You want to get it up to highway speed, or you want to see how it does? And that's 50. That's 60 right there. Seems to be just fine at 60.
All right, hang on.
Yeah, and the brakes work pretty good. Nice. All right. So we're not going super far here. We just basically want to make sure that everything works and that we don't have any problems with the car.
You have to tell me if that feels like it's got all the go.
I don't know. I think it feels good to me.
I mean, that felt like what I would expect from a
from a non-turbo NB. I mean, driving Project Ron and then driving this thing is going to be kind of anticlimactic at that point, but
yeah, no real drama.
But as far as what this is, I mean, yeah, it seems like a pretty solid car.
The brakes are starting to get a bit more grippy.
Yeah, once you get them bedded in and all that stuff, I mean, it's gonna be a lot better.
Temperature's holding rock solid.
Yep.
These are old tires.
Yep. Yeah, I'd say it's respectable though. All things considered. It seems to be okay.
It works.
Get some good tires on it, it'll be a lot of fun.
Does Miata things.
Yep. Doesn't make turbo noises, but definitely does Miata things. That
sounds good though.
No, it does. It runs solid, and I think it's going to be a good car for you.
It's interesting because now it's going into second gear fine, so I wonder if it
just needed to warm up.
Needed to warm up. Yeah, could be.
Put some unicorn tears in there.
Yeah.
That'll smooth it up quite a bit.
Beautiful. 203,393 miles. It's barely middle age for a Miata.
Yeah. And after the drive, we looked it over. There were no leaks, no problems. Everything seemed to be working just fine. So will we see more of this car in the future? Probably. I think there's a few more things that we want to do to this. Adam says he wants to V8 swap it, so who knows what's going to happen there. But right now, it seems to be a good car. It's safe, and it's ready to go out for a drive. So that's all we have for today, and we'll see you next time.